Hello, my name is Hart, and this presentation is going to be on the 6 thinking hats. This is for the Introduction to System Engineering 2022 summer semester course. Starting off, I'm going to do a basic presentation of the definition for the 6 thinking hats, the history of how the 6 thinking hats were developed, the different color hats that are used and what they represent. And then I will show a demonstration of how we can use the 6 thinking hats for a project or activity. Finally, I will talk about what systems engineering can gain from using this brainstorming strategy, final conclusion, and a bibliography for future reading and sources that were used for this presentation. So let's start at the beginning with the definition. The 6 thinking hats allow us to conduct our thinking as a conductor might lead an orchestra. This is said by the creator of the 6 thinking hats, Edward de Bono. And basically, it's a way for a project group to use parallel thinking in order to plan in an effective and efficient manner. This is also referred to as lateral thinking management, according to Edward de Bono. So let's go into the history a bit here. First of all, psychologist Edward de Bono, who I mentioned earlier, introduced the idea of lateral thinking, or also known as parallel thinking. His system of thinking allowed for a more creative and spontaneous way of idea formation, so this is a really good idea generation tool. He also talks about the concept of vertical thinking, which is different from lateral thinking, because lateral thinking, like I said, is a creative process, whereas the vertical thinking is more of your analytical thinking, like what you use in mathematics or science. And the various forms of thinking needed a visual strategy in order to keep the whole process organized, and he came up with the 6 color-coded thinking hats. So, here are the 6 thinking hats. Just a brief rundown. We have the white hat, and the white hat is about facts, figures, information. So basically, example would be if I said the book has 10,000 words in it. That's a fact, that's 10,000 words. That would be white hat thinking. Red hat deals with emotions, so that would be like, hey, this really upsets me. I'm using the red hat. Then there's the black hat, known as the devil's advocate hat. This is personally my hat that I unfortunately use a lot. It's pessimist in me. So this would be like, this is why I won't work, this is why I don't like it, etc., etc. Then the yellow hat is the exact opposite of the black hat. This is the optimist, or it's more positive. Then we have the green hat, which is the creativity or new ideas. This is the creative person who can think outside the box. Finally, you have the blue hat, which is your big picture or management hat. And this is the hat that a system engineer is going to use most often. So let's go in depth with each hat. First is the white hat. This hat is very neutral and objective in the way it thinks. So it's concerned not only with just information, but also misinformation, or it recognizes, hey, in order to move forward in this project, we need to know such and such a fact. And this hat can also use background information in order to chart historical trends. So if someone's trying to figure out, hey, how should we move forward with this, let's look at back at how things used to work and see how effective that was. Next hat will be your red hat. And the red hat recognizes that gut reaction, and that is actually important to thinking. It approaches thinking from a very emotional point of view. So you may have a really bad gut reaction to something that just doesn't sit easy with you. And participants, when they're wearing the red hats, are encouraged to share their emotions without judgment. This is very important because people are not 100% objective. So by allowing emotions to be shared, if like I have a really bad reaction to this, people know that when I'm approaching this problem or this project, I'm approaching it from a very negative side. So it's important to understand what my bias is. Next hat is your black hat. As I said earlier, this is the devil's advocate of the hats. It points out all the things that are wrong or what could go wrong. And it values caution and also risk assessment. So systems engineers do a lot of risk assessment towards project, towards problems. This is going to be an important hat for them. But with pessimism must become optimism, which is your yellow hat. This counteracts the black hat with optimism. It determines the value of the project idea. Now, this is a very important point to realize, because why are we doing this project aside from the fact this is what our customer wants or someone higher up has given this to us? We need to see value in order to put forth the work, the effort, and to take the risk to actually do this project. And this gives us reasons why the project should be done. Next up is our green hat. The thinking hat for creativity can produce new ideas, or it can also modify existing ideas. Most important thing to remember about the green hat is capable of thinking outside the box on a problem. Just like in class where we're doing those puzzles to learn how to think outside the box a bit. That is your green thinking hat when you're doing those type of problems. And last but not least is our blue hat. Now the blue hat, as I said earlier, is the management thinking hat. It organizes other thinking hats under the considerations of need and time constraints. So rather than us just jumping from hat to hat to hat to hat for hours on end, this is going to organize what we need to think about, what hats we need to wear to get to our final resolve and get things done. Now, with the other color hats, you can switch between hats. You can have your red hat on, so you have a bad gut reaction, put your black hat on, saying this is why this is bad, and throwing a green hat on, saying, well, here's an alternative idea that might work better. But with the blue hat, you can't take it off. The leader must always keep on the blue hat. Now, let's look at a problem and see how we can use those thinking hats. So, starting off the team leader wearing the blue hat, they might point out that a customer wants an app that will help their buyers to find products they wish to purchase more easily. Now, the white hat, putting that on, team members realize that the customer has about 10,000 different items in their database. And this app has to be able to search for all of them. And these are just the facts. You can't change them. So a team member who's looking for a creative solution may put on the green hat and say, hey, wait a minute. How about we reorganize these 10,000 different items in the database so it's really easy to design and program the app to find them, because now it's searching in categories, not just randomly over space. Now, the other team members hearing this are going to have gut reaction to this one way or the other. They might really like it or they might really hate it. So continuing on, one team member who really liked it emotionally may put on their yellow hat and explain how this organization will help to simplify the search for the app. And this will actually make the app more effective and also will run faster at finding items. However, another team member who felt awful about this idea that the green hat gave, they put on their black hat and says, well, wait a minute. Customer just asked us to make a new app. They didn't ask us to reorganize our entire database. This is going to add a huge workload on us that we weren't required to do. This is a bad idea. Now, another team member, thinking about what the yellow hat team member, what the black hat team member had just said, may put on the green hat and says, "Well, here's a good idea to satisfy both of you. How about we tell the customer, hey, how would you organize the items on your list? You know your customers better than us. You know how your company is better than us. How about you organize your database in a way so everything's categorized, and then that'll help us to create an app for you that'll find things faster. You know, we're asking you because only you know your company, only you know your customers, and we don't want to organize it for you and create a system that's bad for you." And how this works for us is that the yellow hat team member is happy because now the app has an easier time of finding things. And the black hat team member is happy because now that huge workload that could have occurred is now being taken care of by the customer and not by the team. So then the team leader, still wearing the blue hat because they can't take that off, agrees that, hey, this is good direction to go and we can move forward on the project based on what has been presented. Now, the 6 thinking hats for system engineers. Obviously, this would be a great method to be used for any engineering team. As I said earlier, the system engineer is basically the big picture person and needs to wear the blue hat. But then they can delegate all these critical thinking things to the individual team members in a more organized way. You know, they can have someone find out what are the facts for the problem, and that'll be their white hat team member. And they can go around having the team members talk about, you know, how they feel about this project or how they don't feel about this how they feel about this project, which is red hat. And then you can listen to your people who don't like the project, give them black hat so they can explain why they're so pessimistic about it. You know, can take team members who like the project or have a good gut reaction to it and have them put on their yellow hats and explain the value of the project, why they're so optimistic about it. And then people who are coming up with creative solutions or creative ideas, they're going to be wearing the green hat in order to think outside the box. So the conclusion is that the 6 thinking hats is an excellent way to organize idea generation within a team. It helps to organize engineering projects. Finally, it helps a system engineer to delegate the problem solving of a project to the team members. Finally, these are the books which I used for this presentation: Lateral Thinking, Creativity, Step by Step, written by Edward de Bono, and also Edward de Bono's book, 6 Thinking Hats. And thank you for your time.